Everybody else had a totally normal attitude to food and to their bodies and to eating and to hunger and to their appetite and all of that. And I thought I'd come back to this world where all the other women were sane and actually struggling with many of the same issues. And obviously not to the extent of anorexia. That is it's a mental illness and it's a severe kind of physical condition. But actually it's a sort of spectrum, and a lot of women are struggling with the same things. So the Ministry of Thin was actually a sort of manifesto. It was a manifesto for women to stop feeling guilty, stop feeling bad about themselves, stop feeling as though we take up too much space in the world, and to stop feeling apologetic about being hungry. You know, for women, a lot of women, it's really hard to say, I'm hungry, I need food. You know, for me that was well nigh impossible. But I think that obviously it doesn't need to go as far as anorexia, but it's an experience that many women and actually increasing numbers of men have in common.
Did it take a lot of courage to write these books? I mean, is it quite difficult even now for you to talk about this? Or has it got easier over the years?
Well, I began with an article in the Times, and then I wrote a column in the Times for 3 years. And coming out about anorexia was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I was so ashamed of it, I can't tell you. It was more shameful than saying you're an alcoholic or you're a drug addict or something. To me, I actually fled to Geneva that weekend when I wrote this article saying, my name is Emma and I have anorexia. I was absolutely terrified. So writing my first book, An Apple a Day, was extremely hard. I have friends who haven't read it because I find it, I can't go back to it. It's so personal.
Have you reread it?
No, I can't go back to it now. And when people make references to things that I've written in that about, it's so painful. Anorexia is such a painful, private, shameful process and recovery. But then writing this wasn't painful at all. It was really empowering and really fun. It was a really kind of, there was lots of research that went into it, but it was I felt really empowered by it, and I felt like a lot of women were with me on that. You know, it's really ballsy, and it's about how we've got to reclaim all of this, and how there's so much sexist shit out there. There's so much, you know, anti-women stuff out there. That it was a really joyful process writing it.
And when you came out with your anorexia, how did your friends react to that? Were they ambivalent? What was their reaction?
This is the thing. Obviously, they knew. I mean, you know, when you see someone who's lost half their body weight, it's so obvious. You can't hide anorexia. And so many people said to me, yeah, I mean, we were so worried about you. Of course they knew, but I hadn't said it. I found it took me years to say the word anorexia, because it's a sort of ugly word as well. It's a real label, and it's really hard when you're labelled. So, yeah.
Now in this book, you're kind of fighting back. It's a manifesto for, dare I say, thin people? Is that?
No, it's a manifesto for women.
For women.
Why do we have to be young? Why do we have to be slim? Why do we have to be hairless? Why do we have to be smooth? Why do we have to be quiet? Why do we have to be dainty? Why do we have to be... Why do we have to be ladylike? Why do we have to be under the surgeon's scalpel? Why are cosmetic surgeons men? Why do we have to have big boobs? Why do we have to have small butts? Well, you know, it's all of those things. It's anti-age. It's everything that women have to be ashamed of aging. You have to conceal. You have to cover up. You have to, you know, the language that we use, even the language we use about our bodies. We talk about muffin tops, and we talk about bingo wings, and we talk about these fat ankles, which are called cankles. I don't know whether you have that term here as well. The language that women use about their bodies is so out of order, and we don't need that. The average woman has about 60 negative body thoughts a day, and half of those are before she's even left the house in the morning. What does that do to us when we have this? Why is personal body hatred? Why is that normal? Why can't we say we're beautiful, we love the way we look? It's embarrassing to say you like the way you look. Women are not allowed to do that.
I'm going to be a bit of a devil's advocate here. Is it
waging war on myself? It was a war against myself. I don't think women are doing all of this stuff. I don't think we're doing it for men. It's partly women doing it to other women, but most difficult, and this is what the metaphor is, the Ministry of Thin is the battle that we have with ourselves. It's the inner voice. And, you know, I went to some amazing talks on feminism yesterday, and they're really, really, really empowering and really exciting. But this is even more difficult, is the war that we wage against ourselves. Because no one is saying you're not beautiful. No one is saying you're too fat. It's you saying it to yourself. The stuff that you say to yourself when you look in the mirror, lots of us do it. And we're conditioned from little girls to say this stuff. Little girls dress in pink. Little girls don't play in the mud. You know, they don't get dirty like their brothers. They don't ask for seconds like their brothers. When little boys when they have a hearty appetite, that's really good. That's really encouraged. Little girls are meant to not ask for seconds. They're meant to not rush forward and take... You know, even in my household, in a totally, like, English, middle-class, Western household, my father and my brothers were always served first. You know, we didn't get second. But it's little subtle things like that that go through our lives.
Well, I can certainly tell you that's a South Asian thing as well. The boy gets served first. Very sad. But now, are these goalposts changing? Sorry, is there something wrong with this mic? Can you hear me?
Hold it a bit lower.
Okay. Why are these goalposts changing? In other words, are women getting better? Well, do forgive me.
I'll answer that while you're sorting out your phone. I wish they were, because we've made so many fantastic advances in feminism. But I think that models are getting thinner and thinner. I think that the pressures on women are getting worse and worse. The more you can do, the more solutions there are to things like aging, as if aging needed a solution. But anyway, the more there are solutions to this, the more Botox there is and implants and this, that and the other there are, the more we feel we should be doing it. And I don't think things are getting better. Not in this perspective. I mean, do you guys ever? I never do. Do you ever look at the Daily Mail online? No one does. Anyway, you know, the thousands and thousands and thousands of images of other women that we're bombarded with every single day. How can we not compare? How can we not despair?
Now, is it only women, or are men kind of creeping into this same kind of thing where they're being judged?
Well, you probably can answer this better than I can. But I think that people like David Beckham and the growth of male models, I think, are having pressures, increasing the pressures on young men. In terms of the actual statistics, eating disorders amongst young men, at least in the West, are on the increase, really worryingly. About 10% of people with eating disorders are now young men. And where I live in Hoxton, which is a sort of trendy part of East London, you have this thing called hipsters, with their skinny jeans, and the average waist of male models has now been reduced to 27 inches. So the male models are now having the same kind of pressures on them as women. So in a way, part of me thinks, good, you know, you get some of the pressures that we get. But I mean, don't you feel that you worry more about aging than your father did?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd like to figure out why, and maybe when.
But Ashok's a personal trainer. He doesn't have anything to worry about.
No, but even the job of being a personal trainer did not exist 20, 25, 30 years ago. It's only in the last 15, 20 years that it's become really popular, and it is absolutely a symptom of this.
And you're on the front line of it, really, because if your male clients, are probably really conscious of how they look.
And I would say 30 to 40% of my clients are male, which is interesting. I mean, you would expect it to be many more female, but no. I do have one person, I never break confidences, but one person who actually weighs their food before they eat it. So, I mean, that's symptomatic of what's going on. Why is this?
I think that we've started, the way that women focus on their bodies, you know, adverts are targeted at your thighs, or your crow's feet, or your... these lines, there are new lines in between your eyebrows now, which are called lion's wrinkles. And then there are just all these different bits of your body that you have to focus on. And they've done this experiment they track women's eyes when they look at another woman's body. And women's eyes focus in on specific parts. So we don't see the whole. And I think that was a big part of anorexia, is not being able to see the whole, to see yourself as a person. Instead, you would obsess about the amount or the specific large fat bit. And as you know, you can't reduce any specific area of your body, you know, it's an overall thing. But I think that's happening to men as well. So I think that men are becoming more worried about their abs or their biceps or their, you know, the specific parts of a man's body. And it used to be when men got older, they could just sort of slightly run to seed, couldn't they? They could become a bit sort of tubby and a bit sort of, you know, love handles here and the hair falling out, and they could go grey, whereas of course women can't do any of those things. And if women lose their hair, you know, that's the thing that is actually still a massive taboo, is women's hair loss, but I mean that's a different subject. But yeah, I think men are starting to have their bodies focused on in the same way that we've had it forever and ever and ever. And so I think,
do I detect a note of gladness in this?
Well, I don't know. We've just had it tough for a very long time.
You have.
Good old David Beckham.
Yeah. But now, this ideal woman's shape or ideal human shape has been changing over time. When you think of the Bollywood stars of the 1940s or 50s or 60s, suddenly the Bollywood stars are getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And you think of Victorian bathing bells in those naughty postcards or whatever. They're quite Rubensian, dare I use any other word. So now why is it, how is it that societies view the ideal body shape? I mean, why is it changing? And it's not only changing in one direction, it's going back and forth, isn't it?
It's really interesting. And it's not even thin. You can't be thin. You have to be sort of thin but with massive breasts. So it's a kind of really odd thing that's going on, because as any woman knows, if you lose weight, usually the first place you lose it is your chest, and the first place you put it on is your butt fat side. So it doesn't work. It's not real. I mean, you see these incredibly slim women with large breast implants. So it's not a natural look. It's not a natural body shape. And it has got thinner and thinner and thinner. And I'm shocked when I look at something like Vogue or Elle, some of the models there, and they're barely 16, and they're so thin. They're, clearly emaciated. But I would be fascinated to hear from you guys, from women in Pakistan, about, because I think it used to be that you had a more natural body shape, and I think now the pressures are coming over here as well. I think that we're all subject to the same thing. And partly that's globalization, that's the internet, that's the fact that we're all seeing the same stars, the same films. And I also think there's something about, in the West, the sort of incredibly revealing, tight clothes that are very unforgiving and that make women worry about that. And I always used to think that fashions here were so much more forgiving and less kind of, less revealing. But I don't know how, whether, I'd be interested to hear a different perspective on that.
Is it the kind of flooding of the human mind with all these images? Suddenly there are those thousands and thousands of images coming out, and does that influence us?
It's affecting young people massively. The children, I mean, the average 3 to 6 year old girl now says that she feels fat. I mean, that's so sad that little girls are feeling that from the very, very earliest thing. So I think the internet's having a massive impact. If you think about back to your childhood, you just didn't see that many images in a day. I'm talking about before the internet. Just didn't see that many. You might have looked at a newspaper or a magazine, but you didn't see thousands and thousands and thousands of other people, models, actresses, actors, whatever, celebrities, every single day. There wasn't that cycle, the sort of compare and despair cycle.
And the really sad part is that most of those pictures are photoshopped.
They're photoshopped anyway.
So those people don't look like that in real life.
They don't look like that in real life. And if they do, then it's probably a result of personal training and or cosmetic surgery and or photoshopping.
Now, there's been a move in the modeling world to get rid of this size 0 model and have kind of people with bigger, fuller figures on the catwalk. Has that sort of improved things at all, do you think?
But even that, we're not getting away from the fact that we're still objectifying women, calling them plus size, calling them this, that, the other. It's still, why does a woman's body have to be the thing, plus size women have to then be out and proud about being plus size. Why can't they just be a woman in the same way that a slim woman is? We need to go beyond that, and it's really difficult to go beyond that as a woman.
Is this something to do with political correctness? The fact that worldwide there's this push to political correctness. Now this is kind of ironic because it's contradictory.
Yeah.
But is there something politically correct about a slim woman with big boobs? I mean, is there some sort of hint of?
Yeah, I mean, it's a symbol for someone who's meek and mild and dainty, but is also incredibly fertile. It stands for the sort of male perfection, because they're this sort of slightly unbiologically possible sort of model of what a woman should be like. I don't know, but what really gets me, as you're talking, about political correctness and things, is the way that the body label has become. You see these headlines in magazines, things like, slim is out, curvy is back, as though we can just sort of, as though it's the same thing as fashion, jeans are out, skirts are back. Our bodies don't just change. You can't just, slim is out, curvy is back. Okay, so all the slim women are on the trash heap now, and all the curvy women are back in. We're people. We're actual people. We're human beings. And I think women's bodies are still talked of as though they're sort of almost disposable. And we're joking about it. There's lots of it that's quite funny. Stuff about sort of men why are men allowed to have a Porsche? Why are men allowed to go great? All of that stuff is quite funny. But it's not really funny, not when you think about things like anorexia, not when you think about the fact that anorexia and bulimia are the most deadly, they have the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. A fifth, which is 20% of people with anorexia die. That's higher than schizophrenia. That's the highest death rate of any mental illness. So these things are serious. And it doesn't need to be that bad. Any one of you that is suffering and that hates themselves when they look in the mirror, or that tries to stop themselves eating when they're hungry, that's suffering. It shouldn't have to be like that. I don't have the answer. But I mean that it's real. It's our real lived experience. And it's not a way to live. Being hungry all the time is not a way to live.
Again, I'm going to be a little bit of devil's advocate here. In the West, much of the food there is enriched with antibiotics, vitamins, this, that, and the other. Even your cornflakes is supposed to have vitamin D and vitamin K and vitamin XYZ. Does that contribute to people being sort of putting on more weight more easily? I do notice, certainly in Sri Lanka, where we have a sort of quite a jungly sort of diet, for want of a better word. Yeah, sort of raw foods or foods that are less processed. People are slimmer, and I notice that many Sri Lankans who go to the West immediately become very stout.
Well, we don't do anything now. We can even order food just by sitting on the sofa and pressing a few apps. You know, there's so much more calories in everything. There's such an abundance of food. I mean, you go to the average supermarket, there are 500 kinds of different cereals. I mean, in America, it's unbelievable. You know, when you go into a Walmart, you can't even believe the range of food that they have. But I mean that we are doing less and less and less, and consuming more and more and more, and the balance is wrong. Probably you're right as well, nutritionally. You know, different cultures eat different things.
Are we being overfed
in Japan and China, for years, they didn't eat milk and things, they didn't consume milk and things like that, and then when they do that, you know, so I think our bodies are biologically...
Same with us. We have coconut milk. We're not used to...
You're not used to lactic milk, you know, all of that kind of stuff, lactose, yeah. So I think, yeah, there must be that as well, but I think that also, you know, obesity is a problem of affluence, isn't it? We've seen it. It's come from America. It's in Britain already now. It's in Europe, and it's probably spreading as well.
When did we start obsessing about the body beautiful? Do you know roughly when? Can you think?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You're older than I am.
Yeah.
Well,
True.
I mean,
she's being ageist, you see.
No, you see.
I'm going to get her for this.
Giving him a taste of his own medicine. I mean, I don't know when it was suddenly not okay for women to have body hair. When did that all become? But when did that become a thing?
But I mean, when you rewind the clock, the ancient Greeks were obsessed with beauty. Everything was
but that was
ready,
different. That was male beauty. The men are always ancient Greek statues. The men. There was a wonderful exhibition at the British Museum a few months back. And the men are depicted naked, really sculpted. The athlete, you know, the sculpted male form, and the women, if they were depicted at all, were robed, very modestly robed. So it was the focus then was on the body beautiful, the male body beautiful.
You probably had more anorexia among men then.
Yeah, well they did. They had these terrible feasts where they would just vomit and vomit and vomit, didn't they?
Yeah, gosh.
Different.
Let's not go there. Now, there are also these other things, sort of interesting, curious, rather cruel facts. Fat people, for want of a better word, I'm using the word fat, and I don't mean it in a derogatory sense, slightly overweight people or people who perhaps don't look so great do not get jobs. If there are two people up for a job and a slightly more attractive person, it is statistically proved that the slightly more attractive person gets the job.
Yeah, many American researchers have done that, have researched this thing called the beauty premium, and it shows that not only getting jobs, in juries tend to rate defendants who are attractive as they are let off more often, they are rated innocent more often. Children at school, attractive children at school, are slimmer children, prettier children, are more popular and do better at school. Again, there's the job thing. All the way through life, more attractive people, slimmer people. I suppose there's also a link. People who are slimmer are seen as more in control, for good or ill. They're seen as more controlled, more disciplined. People who are larger are seen as, unfairly, are seen as out of control, greedy, unable to rein themselves in. There are so many different stereotypes that we attach to people's appearance.
The one that really gets me is that beauty is equated with truth. And that's a real strange one. You know, sort of a better-looking person is believed more often. And that's really strange. The point I'm trying to make here is, are we programmed, pre-programmed at birth? You know, in other words, have we lost the battle before we even began?
Well, there's, you know, lots of research that shows that we prefer symmetry, don't we? Beauty is aligned very closely to symmetry. So it may be something to do with that we trust beauty because it's symmetrical, because it's pleasing to the eye. I don't know. When you look at little children, even very, very young children will react to people who are disabled or people who are in some way physically incapacitated. They react to it with shock. We're programmed, unfortunately, to notice difference and to notice asymmetry and to react badly to it, which is awful.
Do you want to give us a little kind of snippet from your book?
Okay. I'll read a tiny bit, just to give you a flavour. So what's women's problems with our bodies? Food, far from being a source of energy and enjoyment, has become a battleground of guilt and shame and excess and starvation. Everywhere we look, success and sexiness and happiness seem to belong to the thin. In essence, the Ministry of Thin operates from within us, consciously or not, an internal policeman which tells us that thinner is better. It's the rules, the pressures and the expectations we live with. It's the media, it's men, and it's other women. Hardest of all to stand up to, it's the mirror. It's ourselves. We first absorb the thin rules as young girls, from our mothers, from our sisters and our friends. In adolescence, these rules are reinforced by magazines, by our boyfriends, and by the world around us. By adulthood, wanting to be thinner is just another one of those curious rules which women adhere to. Just as we remove our body hair and wear makeup, we worry about our weight, we despair of our bodies, we try not to eat too much, we force ourselves to go to the gym, we feel fat, we diet, and we start all over again. There is absolutely nothing unusual about these actions or experiences. Disliking one's body and wanting to be thinner is the new normal.
We obviously said something wrong there. One other thing, which actually you, the audience, will be able to help me, and this is for South Asians, that's us lot, not Emma here. Why are we sort of so much cruder about this in just before I came, there was a large billboard in Sri Lanka, in Sinhala, and I'll translate it. It said, you've done everything you possibly could, but you're still bald. What do you do now? Yes, for men.
That's refreshing to hear men being attacked in the same way.
Yes, but
something they cannot help, their hair is falling out, or whatever, and they're being attacked for it. And that's refreshing for a woman to see that men are being told they're bald, you know.
Yeah, but the whole point of that was to make them buy something. So you're insulting them
first. That's how it is.
And
we're attacked. We're made to feel fearful and ashamed of anything that's wrong with our bodies. Especially women, this sort of menstruating or smell or anything that comes out of your body or comes off your body or there's a sort of covering up, concealing it. There's all feminine hygiene products because it's got to be hygienic. There's all this kind of feeling that the body is somehow shameful, and so I'm glad that men are being attacked in the same way.
Let's hope yes. And so, what do you think is the prognosis? Where are we going? Are we going to end up as a sort of human race of skeletons, or is the fat in us going to fight back?
Well, it's happening at both ends, isn't it? It's happening that we've got an obesity crisis and we've got eating disorders massively increasing. So I don't think that one end or the other is sort of winning. And actually, having been so thin that I nearly died, it's the same problem. I've got friends who overeat, people who undereat. It's the same problem, which is that we're burying emotions and feelings and anxiety and all sorts. We're burying it either in food or in starving ourselves. It's not actually about our bodies or our weight. It's not. It's about using food in a sort of slightly problematic way, either to bury our emotions and to stuff down our feelings with food. Comfort eating is what people do if they're very overweight. They're trying to bury emotion. And it's not the way to solve the problem, and it took me about 10 years to see that. But, you know, I still struggle with it, as many women still struggle with it.
Okay, time now to throw this to the audience. I'm sure there are lots of questions. Have we got a mic? There's a question here.
Okay, so my question simply is the problem not just marketing? The fact that there is so much more advertising Now, with all due respect to everyone in the audience who works in marketing, isn't that the real culprit?
It is, but it isn't, because we're all subject to the same marketing, we're all subject to the same advertising in a way, and we don't all get desperately ill. So I think that actually the dieting pressures and all of that, the body image stuff, we're all subject to that, but it affects people differently. And something like disordered eating or eating disorders, severe eating disorders, that comes from inside. That's about control. That's about yourself. It's about not trusting yourself, not letting yourself go. We were talking about this at dinner the other night about how some people can have just 2 pieces of chocolate, but some of us think, well, if I started, when would I ever stop? You know, and this feeling of being out of control, which happens at both ends. It happens with obesity and it happens with emaciation. So, yes, marketing and advertising and the internet has massively exacerbated the problem, but I don't think it's just that. I don't think if you eradicated all films, adverts, you know, all marketing, TV, everything tomorrow, I don't think you would completely solve the problem. But it's a big part of it, I think.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. It's not, I mean, there is something that we haven't put our finger on here, and I'm not sure I have. There's a question here. There are lots actually, so we have to whiz this mic round. Oh, sorry, there's one here. You have to pass the other one over.
I had grabbed the mic. As an overweight person, and I cannot blame anyone for my being overweight. Over the years, I've piled on the weight. And I don't expect sympathy for it because it is completely an issue of indiscipline and not controlling and convincing myself with arguments like, oh, I enjoy food and I love it and I can't stop it. And I'll see other people with their plates not loaded as much. In front of them, I'll pile on the food on my plate. So it's not even that all overweight people deserve sympathy because the world is cruel to them. I am fat, I'm shapeless, and if I'm a figure of ridicule or fun, I should get the blame for it. So it's not just availability and marketing. I'm not an idiot. And we blame people for not stopping smoking or drugs. How much is the overweight person better than the drug addict or the smoker or the alcoholic?
But I think
we're all in the same league.
Yeah, and so much of what you say resonates with me, resonates with my experiences, because it's emotional eating.
No, I've got no problems with emotions. I've got a nice, comfortable life. I have no problems. My husband doesn't beat me up. I do not have...
Yes, I didn't have child abuse. I come from a very happy family too.
I have a very good job.
I mean,
work well, I'm respected. So I have no
but eating is emotional. Food is emotional. Food is the way that we show our love. It's how we celebrate with families. Food is an inherently emotional thing. We all emotionally eat. And what I'm saying is the experiences you describe of piling up your plate, of rationalizing it with yourself, I enjoy my food, all of that stuff, it resonates with me too. And so I don't think it's about being fat or thin. By the way, I don't think you're shapeless.
It is about lack of control, and we have to take responsibility.
Yes, but control is an emotional thing. You're saying you have a lack of control. I had a rigid sense of control, but I wasn't in control at all. Anorexia was in control. That's the thing. You think that you're in control and you're not. So I think that the experience of being overweight or underweight is actually not as different as it looks. Physically, it looks very different, so we assume they're different. But I don't think they are.
Tell me, when you had your anorexia, did you feel comfortable in your skin?
No.
You felt guilty?
Everybody was staring at me. Do you think I felt comfortable? I couldn't lie down without my bones cutting through into the mattress. I couldn't get on the bus without my tailbone grinding against the seat. It's a horrible experience. I couldn't even maintain my body heat. I was so thick, so cold. You know how cold Oxford gets in the winter?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, Oxford has to be the coldest place ever. And
especially at 2 in the morning.
And I would just get up and walk all night through the streets of Oxford. Freezing cold with 5 different layers on. It was the most lonely, cold, miserable experience of my life. No, don't go near anorexia. It's physically awful. And yes, everybody stares at you.
In your case, of course, you are quite comfortable in your skin. I guess that's the difference there.
I convince myself I'm comfortable.
Okay, yeah. Okay, loads of questions. Well, we had to zip through these. Sorry, yes. Is there a mic over here? Oh, sorry, there's a mic there. We'll go with her first, and we'll come to you next.
Hello.
Hi Emma, thank you so much for your talk. It was very educational for everyone in the crowd, I'm sure. Yeah, this is okay. So it was alluded to at some point in the talk that a lot of what we see or a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, either whether it's underweight or anorexia, it's got to do with the ideal body image for women that's portrayed in the media. But I think one thing that we've missed out is that being overweight and underweight they're actually two sides of the same coin, because while the body image for women, the ideal body image for women has gone from skinny to curvy back and forth over the past century or so, obesity rates have risen dramatically in the past 30 or 40 years, and the actual epidemic itself, I mean, more people now die in the world today due to obesity-related diseases than they do to being under...
Type 2 diabetes is a massive
exactly.
problem due to obesity. Yeah.
So because that has been on the rise, there's obviously a backlash for being fat, being overweight, which is, again, because women are obviously judged more on their physical appearance than men are, suffered the brunt of it. So that in itself, the obesity epidemic is one of the reasons why you see this epidemic for, let's say, anorexia or bulimia or body weight issues. Wouldn't you say that they're two sides of the same coin?
Yeah, that's what I have been saying. Absolutely. I think that they look so different. They look so physically different. You know, an obese person and a skinny person. I hate all these terms, by the way, but I'm fed up with railing against them. Because every time I do, I get attacked on Twitter for saying fat or skinny. But if you can call a slim woman skinny, you can call a larger person. I mean, fat is a physical thing on the body. So whatever we call them. But yes, they are two sides of the same coin, absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
There's one behind you, and then you can pass the mic to you. They're fighting over the mics here. Okay, please go ahead.
My question is, who defines beauty? Because in this part of the world, if you have a darker complexion, you're not considered beautiful. So
Exactly, that's another really interesting one, which I can't bring up. But
So
I mean, you
who
have
sets
different
this
standards as well.
precedent? Yeah, who sets this precedent that, you know, that XYZ is beautiful and I'm not? So what is happening? I don't get it.
You tell us. I mean, who does? But we all know. We all know what Ashwarya Rai. She's this beautiful woman. Why is she beautiful? Just everybody knows that she is. Same thing with all these movie stars, these celebrities. They shouldn't. I mean, why shouldn't something else be beautiful? But yeah, exactly. Who sets these standards?
Over here.
Yeah, thank you. We have not talked about body metabolism at all, because there are some people who eat very little, and I have experienced those people, and they still they put on weight. And there are lots of people who, sort of eat quite a bit. My late husband used to compare me to himself, and he used to say, I just have water and I put on weight. And
Well,
you hop the whole day. I have put on weight now, but I was always quite skinny.
can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say something controversial, and then you can all attack me on Twitter. Yay! Which is that I have a friend who's a doctor, and he said it's really simple. It's calories in versus calories out. I think that's true. Secondly, I just got back from a trip all around Africa. I didn't see a single obese person in the Masai Mara, where they're starving. And thirdly, you don't see overweight skeletons. So all of this stuff about, oh, I just have bigger bones, I just have a slow metabolism, I don't believe it. No. Because if you don't eat, you get very, very thin.
Emma, I have a question. Basically, you mentioned how you thought that women, our bodies, like they're sort of objectified in the way that over the years it changes from curvy to skinny. So we've seen that, and you mentioned Greek art and how men's bodies were like the perfect size and everything. And I recently saw this post where it was like that Greek women, they were they had their curves, but in the sort of right places. And then we have the Renaissance, where in art women were depicted like curvy and obese at times, and with small breasts, but now big breasts are in vogue or whatever. So, do you think that art has a huge factor in our how we see ourselves?
And fashion as well, like the 1920s when all the women suddenly became really androgynous, really slim-hipped and boyish. And yeah, I think art and fashion have a huge influence on women and men's bodies, but mostly women, and culture as well. Different cultures appreciate different things. And also, you know, it used to be that it was a sign of affluence to be fat because you could really, really feed up your family and stuff. And now it's a sign of affluence to go to the gym all the time and have this hard body, this rock hard body thing that they talk about in London a lot. Is you've got to go and you've got to get ripped. I'm sure they talk about it in Sri Lanka as well.
Oh, very much, very much.
I think that just being a doctor, I'd like to point out that humans have a range of body shapes and sizes and everything, and that's normal. But the emphasis, I think, has shifted from, say, my aunt's time, who was a doctor as well, and she's in her 80s now. From people, a girl was pretty, she was healthy and she was fresh and had big cheeks and everything. Like, you know, a sign of a good exercise, food and everything. And nowadays, every time a girl has to get married, you know, you see her, you know, going desperately trying to lose weight and looking as thin as a reed. And she looks very pale and sickly. But with all the cosmetics and everything that's put on the wedding day, you know, she looks perfect because she's thin enough to be the perfect bride. So, I mean, I don't know what we can do to reverse this, because as a doctor, obviously, I would say that people should be, you know, you should be your right size for your height and, you know, whatever.
It's odd that we get that thing where any kind of big occasion in a woman's life, oh my God, I've got to lose 10 pounds, I'm getting married, all of that kind of stuff, when actually, you're right. The reality is that you're hungry, you're not healthy, you're underweight. It's a really desperate experience to feel hungry all the time. And it's not healthy at all. Yeah.
Okay, there are some questions over here. Oh, there's one here.
I just don't know where to draw the line. As a person who regularly looks at Daily Mail online, I know that's so stupid of me to do
I'm
that.
glad you do. I'm glad I'm not the only one who never looks at the Mail online.
I actually do that every day, and there are these pictures of
You guys call it the sidebar of shame.
Yeah, sort of. I don't know what to call it, honestly, because it's just this comparison that I just feel compelled to do every day. This comparison between myself and these women that I see on Daily Mail. And there are these women who are fat, obese, plus size, I don't know. It's kind of a blurred line. And they say that they're loving themselves, they're feeling themselves, or whatever. And then I just don't know where to draw the line between loving yourself and being actually obese. I mean, where does it actually become a medical problem and goes from loving yourself to actually a disease, and you have to, you know, get treatment for it, or I don't know. I'm really confused because I end up offending a lot of people when I ask this question, because they're like, I'm loving myself, I'm happy in my skin. Who are you to say that? And
I think you're healthy if you're eating well to your appetite, you're eating when you're hungry, you're doing physical exercise. You know, I mean, I think there is a balance. But yeah, I think women should have to stop defending themselves. I think every slightly curvier woman in the public eye has to say, they have to come out with this claptrap about, I love who I am, I accept myself as I am, you know? Why should they have to say all that stuff? Why should they even have to talk about their bodies?
I have a tendency.
Do we have another mic? If you can get one to the back there.
I have a tendency to forget, so I just wrote down some points that I wanted to
Okay.
say. Many people would accuse me from being overweight and relating it to memory loss. Anyway, irrelevant. I often get this thought that all of these concepts of beauty, of all these idealism, they started a long, long time ago, as we all know. Who did it? Why did they do it? How did they do it? Why would it even spread along if a lot of people were shamed by it? Like, people must be fat or like underweight then too. So they must have gone through a lot of pain, a lot of horror then as well, like we do right now. So now that it's been instilled into us, we are forced to think about it. If we look at ourselves in the mirror, we are forced to like body shame ourselves. We are more of culprits than other people around us. So now
What is the question?
It's not actually much of a question. I have this thing that I really
I like the male directness.
Yes. Is there no way to crush that idol now? Is there no way to start it all over again and begin? Like, I mean, if growing and reducing is part of a natural phenomenon, then why can't we accept it?
You tell me.
No. Difficult one.
This
Difficult one. Okay, there's some questions at the back there.
My question is why, if you can go back in time, do you remember why you started dieting in the first place? And would you say that was down to the fashion magazines and how the media depicts the perfect woman?
Yeah, I didn't start dieting. I stopped eating. I remember to the moment.
Eating, sorry.
Yeah, I was living in New York just before university, and I had a massive breakup, and I got my heart broken, and I just stopped eating.
So you wouldn't say because of
it was me against myself. I was absolutely hated myself unbelievably, and I just got sick like that.
So basically you're saying it wasn't because of how the perfect woman is depicted?
It wasn't my parents, it wasn't the media, it wasn't magazines, it was me attacking myself. Yeah. And I went straight into anorexia, within a year, as I say.
Because that's a serious problem, and it's not necessarily caused by the media.
No. I'm just talking about all the factors that pressure women, because I'm aware that not everyone in this room has had anorexia, but I'm aware that we all feel these pressures. Every single woman who emails me has a story about, I'm too big, I'm too small, I can't diet, I'm constantly dieting. Every single person, and men too.
Isn't this something that we should live with? It's a part of life. Nobody is ever happy or completely happy with how they are or their circumstances. So,
yeah.
Okay, any questions from this side? Because we've had... Oh, okay, there's one over there. Sorry. She's been waiting a long time. Can somebody get her mic to the girl with the red scarf? Yeah.
I was wondering, anorexia and bulimia are the most fatal mental illnesses that exist. And a large portion of that recently has been...
Anorexia, actually, bulimia.
A large portion of that recently has been due to family influence. And here in Pakistan, we have a tendency to always be telling our girls how they should look and how much they should weigh to get married, to look good, etc. So I'm wondering what you think families should be telling their young girls that are at risk for these diseases to make them feel comfortable in their body when they aren't told that by the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. It's really hard to put into practice, but I think it's as simple as, you're okay, you're good how you are. I know that's not the solution, but it's what I tell people and what I try to tell myself is that however you are, you're fine. You're not too much. You're not taking up too much space. You're not hungrier than anyone else. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I don't know. Isn't it that?
Okay, there's a question right next to you. Oh, yeah. Okay.
A male question.
Hooray!
So I was having this debate with my friend the other day, right? And I was discussing how I believe, I was debating how it's in my head, women are responsible for their own objectification, right? Because something that I'm exposed to on this side of the world is that generally, for example, in my own house, a 3-year-old is generally playing with makeup tools and stuff, and a 3-year-old boy is probably playing with a ball and a car, right? So something that we promote on a very minute and a general level in our own society is that we make it very important for even little girls ourselves. Women make it in our society for their little girls to feel that they have to look good, right? So what I'm asking is, do you agree whether women themselves are responsible for the objectification that they have established throughout in their...
Yeah, didn't I say that?
We established that already.
I know, I think you're absolutely right. It's women can be dreadful about other women. We all can. So that's one big thing about the Ministry of Thin is let's stop being so... It's not a competition. If one woman looks beautiful, it doesn't make us any less beautiful. If a woman... It's not like a job. It's not like you go for a job and one woman gets it and you don't. If another woman is happy or looks nice or loses weight, it doesn't have any effect on us. We need to stop the bitching and stop the sniping and stop being happy when someone else gets, dumped or divorced or whatever. That kind of thing. Women get the most wonderful news is that another woman has put on a stone in weight. What's all that about? We all do it and we all feel it, and that's not necessary. But also, it's ourselves. It's us against ourselves that is the worst. It's not really men.
It was lovely listening to you, and I decided that I'm not going to listen to any of my family or friends who call me fat, but I'm just going to
after this, I'm going to go have something really nice to eat, something fattening, and just be happy.
Lovely. And that's the thing, is that, well, A, you have a beautiful figure, which I shouldn't even say, but you do. And B, it's reminding ourselves that food should be about enjoyment. Simple as that. It should be about enjoying ourselves and eating well. And like you were saying, what's the solution? Surely that's the only solution, is that we enjoy it and we don't make it into this battleground that I talk about, where we feel guilty if we do, we feel guilty if we don't, you know, all of that. And so, yeah, enjoy it.
Over here.
Hi. Could you please elaborate a little more about the mental health? You were talking about the mental, what you went through when you were in anorexia, and what usually do you encounter women who write to you?
Yeah.
Especially concentrating on the mental health.
Yeah, you can read my book.
Read the book. Over there. Another man. Oh, sorry, no, miss you.
Sorry,
you got it.
I was 5 minutes late, so I didn't get your name. Can I have your name, please?
Emma Woolf.
The lady who's written this book, yes? Emma. Well, Emma, I have this question for you, and it's really quite interesting. You know, when you're about to start a diet, people tell you, oh, the first week will be terrible, but then you know what, you'll get used to it. But if you really get used to eating less, why do you put on all that weight again?
95% of dieters regain the weight loss. Diets don't work. Diets don't work. And if they worked, it's $1 billion industry. If diets worked, there wouldn't be any money in dieting and the whole diet industry. They have to not work so that you go back on a diet. I've never been on a diet in my life. I have no advice for you about dieting. I dieted once, I just stopped, you know. I don't know about regular dieting. All of my female friends are on diets. I don't know what that means.
You're mentioning a friend who was a doctor. Is this supposed to be true, that your stomach is actually a muscular organ, and if you get used to putting less and less in it, it will automatically shrink? Is that true or not?
Yeah, my stomach shrank to the size of a pea because I wasn't eating anything. So I think that yes, do adjust.
Over there. The mic is good.
Just shout.
Shout otherwise.
Do you think that still in 21st century our traditional medical science doesn't know the true and real cause of any disease, including obesity? They only transform one disease into another, resulting multiplication of disease, and the future generations will heavily pay the cost of it, and today younger generation is paying the cost for this quack medical science. Thank you.
Why didn't you say it that way?
I'm not sure what the question was. Sorry, let's move on.
No. Very important question. That's very important question.
Okay.
Come and ask Ashok afterwards. He wants to talk about that one in more detail with you.
Do you think that still in 21st century our traditional medical science doesn't know the true and real cause of any disease? I can challenge them, including obesity of $1,000 billion. If they prove in open forum they know any disease, I will give them $1,000 billion. Do you think that still in 21st century our traditional medical science doesn't know the true and real cause of any disease, including obesity?
Yes.
They only transform one disease into another, resulting multiplication of disease, and the future generations will heavily pay the cost of it. And today younger generation is paying the cost for this quack medical science.
Okay, I have a flight back to London at some point this evening at 3 in the morning, and Ashok is flying back to Colombo. So why don't you tweet us that one?
Okay, next one. Who's got the mic? Okay. The mic is not on. No.
She's saying, how did you overcome that anorexia?
How did you overcome your anorexia? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
How did you?
Okay, that's really not
All night.
Not a simple question at all, but you can buy an apple a day. I've got some leaflets up here. It was a long, very, very difficult process. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, and I still struggle with various, thoughts about all that sort of thing. And anyone who's ever been anywhere close to an eating disorder will know how difficult it is. But it was over 10 years of my life, so I can't really answer it right now in a phrase, you know what I mean?
Okay, we've just got time for a couple more, I think.
Hello? Hi, I'm here.
Okay, over here, sorry, and you can be
I
next.
actually, myself, have an issue with the term weight, but we obviously touched upon marketing and how we actually see things on social media about body image and the way we should look. But don't you think that when it comes to weight, it's about social construction? I mean, I can speak on behalf of the actual Pakistan society, and from how we were from a young age, about, you know, our parents telling us that if you don't look a certain way, if you don't look a certain way, you can't get married. I mean, it's quite, you know, popular here. So don't you think that in terms of weight, it's not a social construction and not to do with the actual market and what we see on social media? That's the question.
Well, I think weight is quite an arbitrary thing anyway. What, actually, to respond to the previous lady, one of the best things to do is to throw out your bathroom scales. Stop weighing yourself. You don't need to weigh yourself every day. It's got nothing to do with who you are as a person or how you feel, and you know if you become suddenly unhealthily weight gain. I don't think that's necessary. But I think weight is quite arbitrary anyway, as is the BMI, the body mass index measure. Ashok will know that a very muscular person who muscle weighs 3 times more than fat, a very muscular athlete can be absolutely peak fitness and can have and can be measured overweight on the BMI scale. So I think that things like weight and BMI and comparing yourself to other people in the weight things is irrelevant, and I wouldn't do it. So yeah, weight is arbitrary and silly, and it's all about an actual body, living, breathing human being, isn't it? Anyone?
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but what about subcultures that reconstruct the image of the body? For example, in Japan you have the gyro culture or the lolita culture. Although it's an entirely different sort of a body image that they're constructing, isn't that a reconstruction, and how do you think it will affect the mainstream, ultimately, in reworking the image in the mainstream?
I'm not sure.
It's a tough one. It's a complicated issue. But I think you're right. I mean, I've touched on the way different cultures view women and what's perfect, what's deemed perfect in different cultures. And yeah, you're right. In Japan, there are very different ideas to say in Africa, to say in Europe. So I think the way that we are about food and about eating and about bodies and women is different across all cultures. It's a really interesting question.
Okay, probably time for just one more over here.
Can
Just one.
I ask something irrelevant?
Yeah. Is it true that Virginia also suffered from anorexia?
Is it true that Virginia also suffered from anorexia?
Virginia Woolf. Well, we spoke about this in the previous session, which is why I'm a bit... No. I think, I mean, I've written, it's on the internet, I've written about how I think, from a modern perspective, Virginia was suffering with, in her mental illnesses, that she had issues around eating. But it may be that it was more that when she became very ill, she would stop eating. As her weight plummeted, her breakdowns became more severe. So whether we call it anorexia then, in 1912, 1915, or whether we are sort of putting a modern construct on it, is an interesting one. But yeah, I can see many, many parallels when I read her diaries about her issues around the body.
You said you became anorexic after a breakup. Yeah. Do you know what was hurting? What happened?
Do you know what was hurting inside?
Oh, heartbreak.
Okay, just one more question, and we've got to wrap it up. Anyone? Okay. Microphone. Because the other people need to hear.
If one's happy in one's own state, why do other people have issues? Like, I'm chubby or fat, you can say. But other people's, like my family and my friends, all other people have got issues. But I'm happy in my own state.
But if you're happy, that's wonderful.
But why do they have to?
That's for them to answer, I guess. I don't know. If you're happy, that's the important thing.
So I'm working out, I'm doing different diets and all because of them, because they keep telling me that I'm fat and I'm not acceptable and all.
that's the idea that's being instilled in our minds, that you're presentable if you're thin.
Resist, just do what you want to do.
As if I can't walk or something, I can walk, I can do workouts.
Yeah, exactly. Aren't we lucky all to be mobile, healthy? You know, I mean, we're just so privileged.
But why do other people have got issues?
Maybe for your
I don't know.
for them to think. For your health could be. There are health issues related to weight. So could be loved ones are pressuring you to prevent future health issues, like your joints go and you end up with diabetes or other health.
Or they could just be mean.
No, it's not. Why not? Loved ones do not have to be mean. It could be your future.
It's true, it's true. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a huge reproductive session. Please give Emma Woolf a big round of applause.